lively group tonight.
All right. Good evening and welcome back. This is now the Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, September 9th, 2017. The time is 7:47. If we could get a roll call, Pat.
Hendrickson? Here. Kenny?
Here.
Malat?
Yep.
Reed? Here. Roll?
Here.
Traxler?
Here.
Tom is excused.
All right, this is notice of an open meeting. We do have an agenda to approve. I would like to table or remove items 16 and 17, given that those were put on the agenda per Mayor Tome's request, and he is unable to attend this evening. So I would like to approve this agenda, redacting items 16 and 17.
So moved.
Second.
All right, and is that a roll call? I didn't think so. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, the agenda passes without 16 and 17, and we can choose to bring those back at a future date. Citizen comments on any agenda items. Is there anyone signed up in the back? I don't believe so. Nope. All right, thank you. Department reports are in the packet. Is there anything we really need to discuss? Anybody have questions or concerns on the department reports? I don't think so. All right, let's move on to the 2016 annual report from the Columbus Library, and Cindy Fessmeyer is here to kick that off. Welcome. All right.
Oh, awesome. Cool. Thanks,
The
Jesse.
wizard behind the curtain gets that one.
That was magical. Thank you. So now that we're budgeting for 2018, I thought I would tell you what we did in 2016 across the street at the library. This is just a thing that we do annually. It's based upon the statistics that we report to the Department of Public Instruction, which is our umbrella agency, and they took a little while to get through the approvals of these this year. No big deal. So I just want to start by talking about the Thank you. About talking about the library as a bastion for democracy with a lowercase d. That is, we provide a place for everybody who has needs for information of any kind, whether that's social, learning, whatever it is, we're there for everybody in the community. So we just want to make sure that you guys know that. The second slide, we're going to talk very briefly today about these few points. Columbus Library is a place for learning, fun, building community, a community center for diverse populations, and a blossoming arts district. Place of learning, stop by sometime after school and check out how crowded we are with kids using computers, using their devices, taking advantage of our free 24/7 Wi-Fi. Literally sitting around and doing homework together. It's a lovely sight. I wanted to let you know that we're seeing an uptick in the number of tests that we proctor for people when they go back to school and do online learning. There's still a need for having some trusted figure making sure that they're not cheating when they're taking a test for that class. And so we will proctor anywhere from a couple here and there to around finals times, maybe a dozen tests in a month for people. And we're really happy to provide that to folks. In addition, 24/7, we've got books, databases, lots of online resources, and we strive with our open, password-free Wi-Fi that's available on pretty much half the block over there to connect as many people to the internet as possible in an effort to give them access to the tools they need. So to look at our circulation trends, because a big thing, what we do is books, it's true. So I just wanted to let you know that though the library trend nationally has been for circulations to decline just slightly year by year, we see up and down ticks. I don't know why, it's just what we see. I want to point out that the top kind of greenish color is e-materials. A lot of folks might say we don't need libraries because you can get it all online. That's clearly not true. E-materials is every title that's read online that doesn't require someone to come in, you can see it's a very small percentage of what we do in a year. It's broken down to children's, adult, and e-materials there. We're still going strong. So a place for fun, this is just a couple images of some cool stuff that happened in 2016. We did a Dr. Seuss parade in the 4th of July. We, thanks to our lovely assistant director, who is our youth services person, launched a Pokemon club, which is hugely successful at the library. We pack the place once a month for that club. And yeah, librarian dunk tank at the end of the summer library program last year. That was cold. The water gets really gross after a while, too. So go first if you're ever in a dunk tank. So along the lines of programs, I just wanted to let you know that though we see people coming into the building going up and down year by year, we see circulations going up and down year by year, there is one thing that is growing, and that is our program attendance. I'll point out the green line is children's. We are, in addition to offering all the mainstays at the library, we spend a lot of time and energy in the schools, from preschool through the high schools, doing story hours monthly, doing book talks, inviting kids to take part in the summer library program. That's a big part of why our programming has grown so much in the last years, is because we're out all of the time bringing what we do on the road for people. We just don't have the room to bring them in. If you could go back to that once more, I just want to point out too, the bottom lighter blue is adult programming. Not as dramatic of an increase as the children's with numbers, but percentage-wise, we're really knocking it out of the park, bringing more people into the library and going out to serve the adult population of the community as well. If I do say so myself, which I did. We're also, and you all know that truly we hang our hats on our ability to work with the community, learn what they want, and do our best to deliver it to them. The biggest way that we're able to do that is we just have many, many partners within the community. This slide is just a sampling of who we work with on a really, really regular basis. And when you looked at how quickly our program attendance has increased, that's due in large part because we're partnering with organizations like the Historical Society, the Literacy Council, the Friends of the Library, other city departments, the hospital, the schools, in order to get more bang for both of our bucks and serve our communities better together. Along the community builder, I'll just point out, thank you for mentioning, Reagan, that here, look, it's a library journal that calls us the runner-up for best Best Small Library in America, and thank you, Columbus Journal, for giving us a cover page, so you can look at those. I'll need them back. So this is sort of an example of our connection with community. In the upper left hand, you see just a typical scene from one of our Root for Columbus Action potlucks. The lower right-hand corner is one of those projects. That was the first Columbus Chalk Walk. We did it again in 2017, and I'm sure we'll do it again in 2018. You all know that Mary Lou Sharpie was the Columbia County Library Advocate of the Year in 2016. And once a year, around holiday time, we have a big volunteer celebration. And our Volunteer of the Year in 2016 was Mary Jo Wentz, who is our lovely master gardener, who on off construction years keeps the library looking lovely. So I mentioned patron visits go down and up, and I don't know why again. I assure you that 2017 will be down from 2016 after the summer. The spread isn't as dramatic as all of this. It's from 6,700 to what, maybe 63,500. So we pull in a lot of people in a week. I want to make sure that you understand that we serve everybody. When social service agencies can't help people, they send them to the library. When you can't get internet in your rural home, you come to the library. So I just want to let you know that we strive to create a place that is comfortable for anyone who visits. Our newest addition is the library annex. Though we purchased it in 2016, we've really sort of had the grand opening and programmed it in 2017. The upper level is occupied by 4 local artists, and we're really working hard to make Columbus an art destination for people who live here and for people who visit here. So keep an eye out for the cool art programming that we have coming up in 17 and 18. So in closing, I'm just going to say what Neil Gaiman said, which is Google can bring you back 100,000 answers, but it takes a librarian to bring you back the right one. And really, that's what we're there for, to help people wade through so much information. It's hard to find the answer to your question. Talk to us and we'll help you out. Any questions? Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate the picture you submitted to that magazine. I assume you submitted it. That's great. The picture of the library. That's Rod's. That's Rod's? Very nice work, Rod. I like that. All right, moving on. We have the item number 7, resolution number 18-17, Public Power Week, October 1st through the 7th, 2017. Would you like to introduce this one, Patrick?
I sure can. I'll step in for our shining star. This is something that usually have the back-to-back meetings where we approve resolutions. This one is Public Power Week, always towards the end of September. And so we want to highlight that Columbus is a public power location, a proud member of WPPI, and so this resolution shares that with everyone. So unless there are any questions, looking to see if this could be moved ahead. The second half, I guess, is next time you'll see the Fire Week coming, so on the next cow. So
Andy?
The only thing I would mention is it was announced as 18-7. It's actually 19-7.
Oh, excuse me. Thank
Well,
you.
no, it's wrong on the agenda. Or on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
So if we're gonna move forward, just make use the right thing.
I think it should be 18-7.
I think it should be as well, because I believe the last
We just-
resolution we passed in the regular meeting was 17-17.
Right. Thanks, Andy.
Good catch. Any other questions, comments, concerns? I'm comfortable moving this forward to the next meeting. I don't believe there's going to be any objection to that. So with that, we will carry it forward. All right. Thank you very much, Patrick. Next item on the agenda is item number 8, consider an application for a Class B liquor and fermented malt beverage license for GMB Holdings LLC, which currently is operating or owning the property at 220 East James Street. Edith Olinsky, agent. Okay. Anyway, we're here to consider the application for Class B liquor and fermented license, GMB Holdings, and I believe Mrs. Olinsky is here as well. I do have a question right away, Patrick, and that is about the reports from department heads. I didn't see one from a fire chief.
Fire, yeah, I kind of wondered about that too, but the fire chief did inspect, and he lumped his comments in with the building inspector. It's a bit nuanced, but Randy and Jake are represented in Jake's email there.
Okay. Do
He
we
did
have an
not have it.
update on any of that stuff? Some of this stuff, I mean, emergency lights, extension cord.
I have not heard back from Jake yet
Okay.
as to when since he put this list together.
Okay. All right. Matt, did you have something?
I guess a comment for staff. I think we kind of went through this with the last big round we did, but I think we kind of came to a consensus with the whole developing a matrix, so we can definitely see very clearly what is what, as opposed to a handful of emails and items, I guess, just to kind of reinforce what I thought we were kind of going forward with our standard for any sort of license applications, just to make sure it's very clear when we go through and actually make the motions, what we're hitting and why it's there, I guess.
You'll see that then when we come
For the
forward.
regular?
Yep.
that checklist, is that what you're referring to? Yeah, I appreciated that too.
Because
so
I think
that's-
like looking through here, yeah, I didn't see anything from the fire chief, and then there's some outstanding bills, but which I think are two different ones, so it's kind of a lot of information, and I think it was the whole point of us having that matrix, is to make it very clear that there's these certain items that are being held out there, so.
Ms. Zelinski, would you like to speak on this at all?
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to bring forth is, a lot of people don't understand why we're using GNB Holdings. That actually is to facilitate the bank's ability to move quickly, because then there's just 3 managers voting rather than having to take all actions in front of the entire board of directors.
Okay.
The other thing is in the inspection, it was my understanding that because we're not going to be open, I just need to have those items corrected before sale. At this time, we do not own the building.
Okay.
It is in that process. However, we're doing this so that we're basically doing a placeholder to hold that license for that location. Those doors won't be open.
Okay.
Edie has to keep her day job.
Good to know. Andy?
A couple of questions. First of all, this will be our last liquor license again? Okay. And then, what kind of business are we putting in there? Is it bar, restaurant? I mean, do you have any idea yet?
I don't have any idea yet.
I mean, I'm a little hesitant on approving something that I don't know what's actually I'm gonna be approving a liquor license for. So it's a little, it makes me a little nervous. I mean, it
You're
could
you're
be-
only approving a license for GNB Holdings at this time. GNB Holdings would then have to surrender, and a new license would have to be applied for. This
Okay.
is basically just a placeholder.
And then, third question, once we get that license, they have to be open a certain amount of days, right? Before it defaults, or we can take it back, or there's an ordinance, right?
There is an ordinance to that effect, yes.
Can you explain what that is again?
If you give me a few minutes, I'll look it up and then I'll try to remember. But
Well, I
there-
just want to
there
make
isn't-
sure it's clear what's going on.
Well, what's going on here is pretty much what Ms. Alinsky has alluded to. They are requesting the liquor license in order to, I'm gonna use the word warehouse it. That's my word, not anybody else's. But basically, they want to obtain the liquor license because it's available right now. It's my understanding that GNB Holdings LLC has absolutely no intention of ever opening the doors as a facility to serve alcohol to anybody, which is okay for the time being, and I'll get back to the, to your last question in just a moment. The things that are important to remember as you consider this is, number one, it is your last liquor license that you have available, short of the $10,000 reserve license. Number two is that the liquor license granted to GNB Holdings LLC is not transferable. So Ms. Alinsky is exactly correct. If and when they sell the building or lease it to somebody or whatever it is that they're going to do with it, they will need to surrender the license. The new applicant will need to come in and apply for the license just like Ms. Alinsky is right now, and you'll have to grant the new license. So that is a little nuance on this whole thing. A couple, and that leads into the conversation about the inspections that certain things haven't been complied with. If they're not gonna open their doors, doesn't matter. Or do you grant the license conditioned upon them not opening their doors until they've checked off all the inspection lists? And that would require the other issue that has been front and center on my plate the last couple of days, is whether or not this entity needs a seller's permit in order to get their license. And I think the answer right now is no, they do not. But as soon as they open their doors to serve alcohol, GMB that is, then they would need a seller's permit as well. So there's a few things that if you approve their application, we'll need to make notes of and make conditions that says, here's your license, but you can't actually use it until this happens and this happens. And if Ms. Alinsky's correct that they're never going to use it, this will never be a problem. Now, getting back to your question about the duration, I believe the ordinance says, and as soon as I get done flapping, I'll look. But I believe the ordinance says something along the line of that you cannot be closed a certain amount of consecutive days. I think that's how we ended it, but I'll look right now.
Thank you.
Matt?
Did you want to respond to what Paul was
No,
saying?
I have one question. Did you receive the email from the Department of Regulations, Ms. Gable? Okay, good. She forwarded it. All right.
I guess, Paul, I had a kind of point of information for you. So the term last license, is there a set number of licenses the city is allowed based on our side? I think there was mention of that during our whole big, long last time.
I believe the number that the city currently is allowed is 13, if I remember correctly.
Unlucky 13.
15?
15.
In any regard, there's a certain amount that the city is allowed, and that is allowed based on number of residents in the city.
Okay.
And then there's one reserve license that is a Class B license that is a $10,000 license. Thank you to the Wisconsin Tavern League from a few years ago. And there is another one that is available as well. So if this license is granted to this applicant, and then somebody next month comes in and requests a liquor license, they have the $10,000 license at their,
You're
that's
paying
available,
a
but
premium
that's it.
for that next license above and beyond.
That's correct.
I guess so. I guess the understanding I have is that G&B was asking, as you put it, Paul, to have a warehouse to hold on to this, and then they would relinquish it upon selling it to ABC bar owner. What is the intent of G&B Holdings having this, other than saying, yes, it was a bar before, yes, it still is a bar-ish?
It's to mitigate the losses that we're already going to be going through. If we try to sell this without a license, or there isn't a license available, or the only license available is the $10,000 license, the value decreases substantially. And if that $10,000 license is also gone, we have a very difficult situation.
Okay.
You know, mitigating our losses. Our losses are going to be substantial.
It's non-transferable from G&B Holdings, but
Right.
basically you're trying to hold on to it as a spot because when they,
Correct.
okay, that makes sense.
I have a quick question, which would be, is there any sort of waiting list for alcohol and liquor licenses that needs to be honored at all whatsoever? I mean, I'm just thinking of a scenario where somebody might already be, kind of jumping.
Nope.
No, okay. Rod?
Two scenarios. You get the license, and then you sell the place, and they want to open a bar and everything. We have to, the new people have to reapply for the license, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, if you don't sell it in 1 year, do you have to come back and reapply for a license for another year?
Yes, I
Okay.
do.
Regan?
Does anyone know historically how often we've had to go to that reserve license?
Sorry, Jesse. There is one reserve license that is taken
Okay,
right now, and I believe that's it.
okay. So, just to kind of frame this a little bit, what we're really weighing here is the interest of the general public or another business to come in and have a license available against the interest that this one particular business has in maintaining the value of their property, which also maintains the value in the city of being able to sell properties and businesses at the rate that they really should be sold at, in a faster manner. So those are the two kind of competing interests as I see it. I don't know if anyone else wants to weigh in on that.
We currently have a brewery moving into town across the street from here. Have they been here and applied for?
They have a license.
They have it, okay. I'm just thinking of somebody we know for sure is coming into town.
Yes. That they secured a license this last go around in effective July 1. The answer to your question, Andy, is a license shall be open for business with adequate stock and equipment for at least 125 days during the term of the license. Or if the premises is closed or not operating for any period of 90 consecutive days or more. If either one of those two things happens, then the council has the ability to bring an action to suspend, revoke, or to suspend or revoke the license. And we talked about this last time when you were granting licenses for the year, is that once the license is granted, a person has a vested interest in the license, and in order to take it away from that person or that entity, the city council needs to actually basically swear out a complaint that the license is not being used properly. There's a hearing that has to be held. I mean, it's a due process situation because they do have a vested interest in the license. So if the 125 days would not, you know, if they would be not open for business 125 days during the course of the license, which is basically be from when it's issued until June 30th, that would be grounds for non-renewal, but by then hopefully they'll be sold and that will be a moot point. Or else if they're closed for 90 consecutive days, that would mean on the 91st day you could bring an action against the license if you wished.
There's nothing automatic. This is something that we have to specifically go through and do.
That-
I just wanted to make sure that was clear and out there that, you know, everyone knew about that.
And that is exactly correct, there is nothing automatic.
I don't see that being an issue, but I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
I am a bit hesitant just because it is our sole remaining license outside of the high-priced $10,000 permit. And given the, you know, no one knows how quick that property would sell, and no one knows what kind of businesses might come in the meantime. So I just, it's limiting. That would be my concern. Every point you make is also worthy of our consideration, I assure you. But yeah, I'm kind of stuck on this one at the point. But Regan, you had something else?
Yeah, I guess I just had a follow-up. We've talked before and we've done before where we grant the conditional licenses based on our normal checklist of items. Is there a way for us to grant it conditional on the, you know, the 90-day window here, I guess, is without triggering the due process piece of it? We know we would need to take an action on that 91st day, but is there a way to limit the license to begin with? No, okay.
I don't think so, and I don't think that, I would not suggest that you do it that way. If you're going to issue the license, you issue the license. And if you are going to issue the license, then there will, in light of what Ms. Alinsky has disclosed to you, there would be two conditions that I would recommend that you put on it. Number one is, here's your license. You can't actually use it until you provide a seller's permit to the city, because that's a requirement of state law. And number two is that the few items that were on the inspection list be satisfied before they open their doors for business. But that would be, here's your license, she's paid for it, it's now hers, but she can't actually use it, which is kind of an odd way to approach this, but that's what she's requesting, and I think that's within the law to do it that way.
Andy?
Yeah, I'm in favor of doing exactly what Paul just said. I think that we should move this forward with those conditions.
Regan?
Yeah, I mean, I struggle. I think there's value in making sure that businesses in the location that the VFW is in are thriving and saleable, and we do need to make a commitment to the downtown area in general. But I do have those competing interests in mind also, so I struggle a little bit. I guess I'm leaning more towards granting it in the hopes that this would get done and a lucrative business would open shortly.
I have one more question real quick to jump in before I call on you, Rod, which is if somebody came in, let's, for the sake of argument, we grant the license this evening to GNB, and in 2 weeks we get another person come in, they go ahead and take the $10,000 permit. What happens at renewal time next year if the GMB license would be available for renewal, not by them or some entity who's bought that associated property, but
You're wondering if they could then take the non-$10,000.
If the $10,000 holder could then apply for, like what, or is there $10,000 and that's theirs, it's one time and you're committed and,
The $10,000 is the one-time
Right.
fee. After you've paid that, then it's the regular, whatever your regular
okay,
fee is after that.
okay. And any other license that opened up after that time would become a $10,000 permit, or how does that work?
No, you have a certain amount of regular licenses, 13 or 15, whatever the number is, that we should probably find out. And then I think there are two of the $10,000 license available. One is spoken for. So if we get to a point where all of the regular licenses are issued, there's only the one option of the $10,000 license. If somebody comes in and takes that, then there's nothing. That you don't get an unlimited amount
Right.
of the $10,000.
But then let's say another license opens back up.
Yes.
Is that one just a regular license? Okay.
Then
And
that's
then
a
we don't
regular
ever have to worry about a $10,000 permit ever again?
Well, as the city grows, I think it has to grow by 500 people, then you get
Okay.
a third, then you get another one. Every 500 jump in population, and I think it's, at any time you increase by 500, you can get another one.
Okay.
I think that's how it goes.
Rod? Thank you.
I think a bird almost in hand is better than waiting for a bird to fly by. So I'm with G&B Holding getting this and agreeing with these guys. Now, we can wait and hopefully, another bar will open up, but if this helps sell something, it's a good chance.
Matt?
Isn't that supposed to be two in a bush? Right?
Bird, one in the hand
Flying
is worth
by.
two in the bush, yes.
I think we're mixing metaphors. I don't know. So as far as I'm saying right now, we have one remaining normal one, and we have one outstanding $10,000 license. So we have one normal and one additional 10,000. So if we grant this to GMB, they take the last one. So ABC Bar comes in 2 weeks from later, and they then have to pay $10,000. Would that then be cost prohibitive of a small business opening up in town in one of our other open buildings that has nobody in there and starting up, as opposed to the former VFW, which is, I'm assuming, not going to be opening up its doors and meeting the requirements that is laid out in there? I guess one of those things where we're doing a placeholder for the benefit of them selling the property, which I totally understand the need for that, but maybe there's 3 or 4 birds in that bush, not just 2, and diving into that bush could be a better idea. I guess it's hard to then leave our one remaining one being a $10,000 one, which is a cost prohibitive, without some sort of, I guess, in place program with the city for development or economic benefits that we don't have right now. But Paul's chewing at the bit over there at me.
Because what you just said is exactly what the $10,000 license was created to make happen. G&B Holdings has a $500 license, and if ABC wants to come in and open up a new bar in the city of
They
Columbus,
really want to come into the city and open up a bar.
they're either going to pay $10,000 to put it at an empty vacant building, or they're going to contact Ms. Alinsky and say, if I got a deal for you, I'm going to buy your bar, and she's got a $500 license. That's exactly how this was designed to work by the Tavern League.
By
as I
driving
suggested.
them to then take obviously the bar
Yes,
that is open.
here's an empty bar that's waiting to be loved, and instead of opening up your own place, buy this person's bar right now. That's what that was the whole intent.
One last comment that you might want to consider is, not just for the bank's sake, but what is the tax value of that property if it loses its license? If it can't be a bar, you've been in that building, I assume, what would you suggest it be?
A bar. Next to a parking lot.
Point well taken, thank you. Trina?
I'm in agreement with Rod that I just think it makes, I think it makes.
You want the bird?
You want the bird?
Yes, the one that's already held. I think it makes much more sense to hold the value of the property. It's such a large property, that I really don't want to see it go into disrepair and to wind up just waiting years empty.
As we've kind of worked through this tonight, I think I've kind of come around to being okay with it, given that last scenario we basically covered, which I think would maybe kind of serve as a carrot or a cattle chute, maybe, to aim in a certain direction. I'm in favor of moving this forward to the regular meeting to take a vote on this at the next meeting, which I believe is October 3rd. Do we have consensus to move this forward where we can then vote on it? And we can also hear any objections or concerns one last time. Rod?
A watch pot never rings.
My head hurts. All right, so that's moving forward. Thank you for attending, Ms. Alinsky. Thank you very much. Number 9 on the agenda is the Enter Pack Park donation. Exciting good news. And we have Amy Jo Myers, our recreation director here. Are you here to speak on this one, Amy Jo? Oh, and we have a representative from Enter Pack. Very good. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And just go ahead and introduce yourself, and then you can begin.
Sure. My name's Amanda Rhymes. I'm here representing EnterPAC and our Give Where You Live committee, which is a committee designed by our corporate program to give back to the communities in which our business resides, which happens to be Columbus. Our committee thought long and hard about what we would like to do to donate to our town, and with Amy Jo's help and the rec department, we have secured a location at the Warner Street location to build a children's park. So we would like to work, and we plan to build a community park for the community to enjoy leisure and enjoyment. And the groundbreaking activities will start when with the children's equipment and possible additional equipment to follow. There have been ideas about a possible adult fitness park, something new that Columbus doesn't currently have, but we thought we'd start with the children's park to get something going. Our plan is to initiate construction next year. As you spoke about earlier, winter is quickly approaching, so that has some effect on us, as well as we want to achieve our maximum fundraising goals. So we just look for your approval for this donation to our wonderful community.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rhymes. This is an issue I'm somewhat familiar with my liaison duties at Rec Board, and just knowing the history in this town of a West Side Park, and it's been promised, and things like that. I think the location's a great idea. It's basically abuts cornfield, and it's right at the base of the hill on Warner Street. It's city-owned property. I think we're working through some steps as far as the city goes. Patrick, maybe you could update us tonight as far as where we're at is on designating or dedicating the park, or what those steps might be. I really like the idea of starting it off with the kids' equipment. If you guys are interested in some other ideas, I have some for that area that I've been thinking about for a while, so maybe I could get some contact from you and share those.
We're open to any suggestions.
Great. Patrick, maybe update us on the park
That
situation.
That piece off of Warner Street is a dedicated outlot to the city per the plat that was platted for the subdivision that was to go there. So it is in city's hands and was planned for a park. So we've got partners ready to do that. Lots of interest from the community. So.
Andy?
Yeah, I remember this coming up when we were at Plan Commission. They were looking at maybe replatting that or redoing something. Anyway, I thought I remembered that parkland might have been in flood area. Do you remember if that's still the case? I remember there's a section of that land was in a floodplain.
There.
On the hill by my house.
I was gonna say, I'm not familiar with the plat, but anecdotally, I live in that area. I don't recall ever
There's-
seeing flood in that spot, but again, that's just anecdotal.
Yeah, and I wasn't here when that subdivision was platted, but it was platted as a PUD or a planned unit development, so it does come with it a certain amount of acreage for parks. Yeah, I know there are areas in that area that are low, but in particular, that area, I'm not sure about the wetland situation.
I'm in favor of this 100%, but
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're not building it in a, where it's going to flood all the time, so.
Good consideration. Matt?
Amanda?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's
Miss
right.
Miss Reams?
You can call me you, I don't, whatever you.
Hey, you interpack lady.
Yes, yeah, that works too.
Of course not. Just kind of get a rough idea of what you're thinking. Are you guys thinking like multiple stages, or kind of what's the idea you guys have right now from when you say park? I mean, I think 2 swings and a slide, or are you thinking like a whole big, you know, new young kids learning engagement, sort of the things we have now for parks? I
We have
guess?
lots of ideas, and we've been working with Amy Jo and her supplier of park equipment to see, based off our current budget and the funds that we do raise, what's the most bang for our buck, so to speak, so that we can give the children in this community the best opportunity possible. And we also like to involve our employees in this opportunity. So we do a lot of voting. They were the ones who helped vote to determine this specific location. Since they are members of this community as well, we do like to involve them in that decision. So I don't really have any specifics for you right now, Matthew. We can definitely discuss that once we have, further down this path. But we are looking at new and innovative children's equipment, possibly handicap accessible, to provide to all children, no matter which disability.
I guess just kind of 2 quick follow-up questions to that. Amy Jo, are you thinking of springboarding off of Interpac's addition to maybe think about the city kind of cooperative with them to add in some more based on whatever funding they have, I guess? And then 2, the unsexy question of, are we building in maintenance and things like that into our budgets going forward for the addition of another park to the community?
Take the responsibility
Sorry.
for maintenance.
And the city currently mows and maintains the property as it is.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
If this was accepted and donated to the city, then DPW would do the maintenance. We do quarterly maintenance on all of the parks already, so we would just add that one on there. As far as piggybacking, haven't really decided that. My future plan park that I would like to work on is Meister Park.
Okay.
To have a complete ADA 100% accessible behind Diamond 2. I'm kind of working on a grant right now for that, so.
Just kind of get a rough idea of what you're thinking, and now
Yeah.
that this has kind of popped up on their end, so.
But working with them,
Yeah.
once we get the ball rolling, we'll sit down and they can work with our supplier and work hand on hand to decide what they want to do and then help them move on.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, Amanda, about the park build or the install.
Yes.
Does your group go ahead and get involved with that? I know at the recreation board level, we're looking at doing Washington Park, perhaps even this fall yet, and that's going to be a community build effort. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you guys are looking for volunteers or would when we got to that stage, or how you folks are going to handle
Yeah,
that.
part of the Give Where You Live committee is not only just donating funds, but also donating labor and time. So that was an exciting part for our employees to contribute to the community. If they may not have funds to donate, they can donate their labor and time. It's a good team building activity for all of us, so it's kind of a win-win on both aspects. So yes, we would be planning on assisting with the supplier to make sure that we meet all of the liability requirements, but also lending a hand that way.
Great, thank you. Rod?
100% for this. A couple questions. Do you have any idea how large this would be? Like a quarter acre, 6 acres?
We'd have to kind of look at the funds raised to determine what size of equipment. We would look to take up as much of the property as possible to utilize the full space.
And what about parking? Is there off-street parking lot? Any idea?
That's a good question. I haven't really thought about that, and I don't want to speak to something that I'm not fully knowledgeable about. So that is something that we would need to discuss. I don't know if there's any off-street. It's, yeah. Not sure we want to talk. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it's in a smaller subdivision, less traveled. So I wouldn't anticipate it being an issue.
Okay.
Well, and I think at this point, maybe part of the goal is to have a neighborhood park for that area, and so I think a lot of pedestrian and bike traffic would be anticipated and at some point encouraged.
Yep.
Reagan, one more thing, sorry.
Yes.
I think Jason's chomping at the bit back here, or for us, or? On this, or, okay.
He's gonna tell him.
It's marshland and never to be played in ever again.
According to your fancy GIS system, there are 3 parcels there. There's 2 outlots per the plat that was mentioned earlier, and then 1 existing lot. Roughly, it's about 7 acres plus or minus that I came up with. Just a couple quick points. One would be the parking. A park that size, I would certainly recommend to require more than on-street parking in a residential neighborhood. You could probably only get a couple cars there. I would imagine an area that could potentially be developed that large, we'd need some off-street parking would be my requirement or a recommendation. 2 other things to note, probably the western 2 acres, and I'm just really guessing here, is in the floodplain. So that would have to be considered for use. I don't think it's unusable, but it might be a soccer field or some area that could, be drained, but yet be usable, maybe not with equipment. The other thing to keep in mind is that I believe currently the city has an agreement with the landowner to farm the public areas out there. And this, according to the aerial photo, I would say about 2/3 or 3/4 of it is planted in corn. So I would guess going forward that would have to be revisited just to make sure that that area would be removed from that agreement and made available for this. Outside of that, I certainly would look forward to seeing the plans.
Patrick, do you know about the contract for that area and its expiration?
I know that there is one, and off the top of my head, I don't know generally those go 1 or 2 years.
Right. I do remember this summer, though, or maybe it was spring. I think we did a 3-year.
Those were
No.
for other
They're,
pieces.
Not for that specific, but
Right.
it's a potential.
No, go ahead.
This is part of the community trails, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there is no termination of the I'm gonna plant corn provision that Jason was just mentioning. That's a condition that the owner, it's a very long twisted tale that I won't go into right now, but the owner of the parcel has consent from the city to plant corn on the city streets and city-owned property, basically. So the outlot that is mentioned here would need to be released from that, so we would have to contact the owner of the lot. No, actually, the city owns the lot. We'd have to contact the guy who's planting the corn and ask him to not do that anymore. I think that's how that goes.
Okay. Thank you.
Just one other quick thing is, just so you're all aware, this area that's set aside in these outlots is also accessible off the end of Fuller Street. So not just Warner Street, but there could also be an access point off of Fuller Street. It does continue south and abut with the right-of-way that's platted there too. So just something to think about as far as access. There could be a couple areas of parking or areas of access as far as developing this too, so.
7 acres was a pleasant surprise. I didn't realize it was that large and expanded that far west, so that makes a parking lot maybe a little more feasible. Yes, Amy Jo.
So we're talking about the 7 acres, excuse me, but they're looking specifically for just the green space, which is the mowed land by wastewater's lift station. Just that green park area, not expanding into the cornfield. So I don't think it would be this large.
Right, but
Not
as far as our,
So I don't think we, I don't
as
think
far
we-
as our interest goes in developing the community and making sure we've got a full big 30,000
Okay.
foot view of it, we have to consider that, in my opinion.
Okay.
So, Regan.
That's all I was gonna say.
Thank you. Okay.
There's room to grow, though.
Yeah. Pleasantly, there's a lot of room to grow there.
We took a little strip of land and turned it into a 7-acre.
Right. So now we have plans for an amusement park. Would Enerpac like that?
Let's start small. And we'll work our way
Yeah.
from
Okay, we'll go incremental if you wish. What action are we looking for, Patrick, at this point? Are we looking to just
I think we need to develop the plan a little bit more, but this is kind of an FYI, get a feel, you know, seen a lot of support so far.
I
so.
would say, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's, absolutely.
So
Well, thank you very much
Thank you,
for your
guys.
attendance.
I would think we'd bring back when we have some tangible things to look at and review.
Perfect. Thank you for bringing this forward. All right, next item on the agenda is Columbus Softball Association requests. They would like to add dugouts at Meister Park, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right. Welcome.
Because I see new faces here, my name is Jim Rake. I am the head softball coach here in Columbus. Would like to do a little backstory for you with CSA, Columbus Softball Association, improvements over the last 8 years. We put the 2 dugouts on the big diamond approximately 8 years ago on the first base side and third base side. The first base side, we added about an 8x10 equipment storage room on that. And then a few years back, 4 years ago, we put up a scoreboard out there. I don't know, I'm not sure if you folks have been out to Meister Park and saw the scoreboard. It's pretty nice. It was an undertaking that I feel that we did a really good job with. Very good improvement to the park. Then this past spring, we put in on the fence caps out there for safety. The fences are about yay tall, and if a girl goes over a fence like this, you're gonna rip her arm. We've been wanting to do that for quite a few years. We got it done. And then we put the 2 batting cages up where the playground equipment was. It's an absolute perfect spot for it. Of these items, we all donated right back to the city. So we raised the funds. We took no funds from the city. The approximate cost to all these projects is $25,000. And I can tell you, as the head softball coach, I'm very proud to go to Meister and have that facility looking the way it does. Now, moving forward, we would like to add 2 more dugouts to the small diamond at Meister Park. I met with Andy Black from Redbud Homes, who's a respected builder in town here, on Sunday, and we're looking at 2 dugouts, one on the first base side, one on the third base side. Approximately 8 foot tall, a wood structure with poles cemented in the ground to hold up the roof structure. So it would be a wood structure with a metal roof, trying to keep our costs down. So approximately 8 foot high with the roof, 6 foot deep to cover the 21 foot bench that's already cemented in the ground. So that's been there for years. All we want to do is put a building over the top of it. And then again, once it's done, we donate it back to you. And we do have the funds for this. There's 2 other requests I do have tonight that not in your packet. If you want to ask questions on the dugout first, and then we move on to the next 2, seeing I'm standing up here in front of you today.
Yep. I really don't have any questions on the dugout per se. I mean, you basically got the size figured out. That was a note in our packet. Sounds like it's kind of determined for you with the bench already being there.
Yeah, the first base side's going to be a little more challenging because of the cement and blacktop. But Steve and I were talking, we can drill into it and anchor angle irons to keep the beam secure.
Okay.
The third base side, we just drill down. You know, call Digger's hotline, get everything lined up, and then go from there.
All right.
And,
Any objections to this as far as we go? I think we'll just bring it forward. And on your next 2 requests, being that they're not on the agenda, I'll give you the time, but I'd ask if you could maybe keep it as short and sweet as possible.
Short and sweet. It's
Thank
on,
you very much.
It's on diamond number 2, a scoreboard. Not nearly as elaborate as the one on the big diamond, just something with ball strikes and outs and a score. On the outfield fence and center field. So both the first base side and third base side can see the scoreboard. And then a flagpole by the big scoreboard. Obviously to put a Columbus Cardinal flag on, and obviously the American flag. I think that's something that should be needed out there.
Is this something your group's looking to spearhead the funding on that as well? Just
We
like
have the
dugouts?
money for all
Okay.
three. Yep.
At this point, Patrick, on those other two requests, do we need those maybe brought to the next cow? I don't know if we can, what's the accepted procedure here?
Typically, we do the committee of the whole, but I'm hearing from the attorney here that if we are acceptable and in the interest of time, we could bring it up to the regular meeting.
Your notice for tonight's meeting just says Columbus Softball Association request. So I heard one really big request there. Or three little ones, either way. If you're comfortable bringing the whole thing forward, you can. Otherwise, you can do whatever you like to piecemeal it out if you wish.
Speaking first, I'll go ahead. I'm comfortable with bringing all three requests. I'm not sure who was first, so I'll go with Regan.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all under the heading of making improvements at the park, so I'm totally comfortable with that.
Andy?
Same.
Matt?
Just a quick question for Amy Jo, if you don't mind hopping up. I guess just to kind of get an idea right now, it sounds like the Columbus Softball Association has done a lot of donations to the city in the past, or the last number of years, decade, about 8 years, okay. I guess just kind of get a rough idea of what maintenance looks like out there for all these items. I hear like wood structure with a metal roof, so obviously the roof is going to be good for a long time. I don't know if would be painting again in the future and things like that. Kind of get a rough idea of what, if you guys have any heartburn about adding on, if there's any
I've kind
maintenance
of
issues.
briefly talked to Davis and Jenny, and they didn't give any concerns about any big maintenance. The only thing would be painting of the dugouts, which we've been doing.
Okay.
The high school's been pitching in and helping with that as well, so.
And it's minute in regards to the greater scheme of
minute.
things for your budget. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, biggest piece is getting taken care of, thanks with the support of Columbus Softball Association. So you guys are to be commended for your commitment to the community and
There's
investment.
one big thing that needs to be done. Once all this is done, Meister's pretty much set, except for maybe a PA system, which, I mean, nothing coming out of the city, is it blacktopped. It's a gravel driveway now, and when you come off the blacktop, it's 2 potholes, water, kids playing in it. It's actually a hazard, because when cars are going back and forth, these little kids obviously love to play in the water. So that's my huge wish list right there, is to get it blacktopped. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, moving forward. Now we have item number 11, consider amendment to city school district facilities agreement. So we've kicked this one around for a little bit this summer, and now well, I guess we're not quite at fall. We're almost there.
Yeah.
I had a request about the cancellation policy. That looks good to me. Thank you very much for kind of rearranging those deck chairs. Do you have anything to add at this point? It looks like from the notes that it's ready to go. Both sides are
School board
satisfied.
has approved at a meeting. I think here we did a little give and take with the schools on things we wanted to see and things we were able to get, things they wanted to see, kind of one of those things. So, but I think with some of the issues that we come away with, we have set understandings of how we will address if issues come up, so.
Matt.
I guess just kind of one last idea. I know we're kind of trying to push this forward as it is, with the whole fob thing and entry, and they swear up and down that there's going to be no issue getting somebody in and scheduled. Yeah. I guess, would they, and they seem to be against giving a fob, obviously, to Amy Jo. I guess, is it worth asking if there would be like a 3 strikes policy, where if there's issues that come up, it happens a number of times where she can't get in, then we could talk about having a fob, just to try to keep that conversation open. Because, I mean, if it turns into a repetitive issue, which obviously it shouldn't, but I guess just thinking worst case scenario, there's really no bite to this other than us being like, oh shucks.
No, I feel like there's something stricter than a 3 strikes policy. I mean, I think we will be documenting if an issue comes up, and issues will be brought to the superintendent immediately. Okay. And that's what they welcome too in the situation. So
it's something you guys have boiled down kind of an idea of how you want to go down that line, and you're both comfortable with that.
We
As much
will,
as both
we will
parties
go
can.
along with it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'm comfortable moving this forward to the next regular meeting as presented and taking a vote on it there. I'm not sure if that's the consensus here. If anybody's got any big objections or talking points to consider. All right, so with that, thank you very much, Patrick, for your efforts on this, and to Superintendent Duman as well and the folks on the school board. Look forward to getting this done at the next regular meeting on the 3rd of October.
All right.
All right, now we have number 12, continued discussion on the Hall Road design and T grant, and for that, Mr. Letha is returning. Thumb through here and find my spot. All right.
All right, council, as we spoke last time, we were debating what the street cross-section may look like for the Hall Road extension as part of the TIF and T grant. And we talked a little bit about kind of the pros and cons of doing what we'd call an urban section with curb and gutter and sidewalk. We also talked about potentially doing a rural section to kind of match the surrounding area out there. And I think the request at the time, if I remember correctly, was can you kind of lay that out for us in a couple different scenarios and kind of break down the costs so we can see what the differential is. And in my absence, I had one of my engineers put together both a plan view of what the city requirements are for an urban section with sidewalks and curb and gutter and storm sewer. And then that also, as a cost, matched the original proposed budget, which we were proposing. That matches your ordinance as far as pavement width and construction of the roadway. The other component that I had brought up last time was looking at what we would call an urban section minus the sidewalk and curb and gutter. With that being said, there is no standard in the city ordinance for an urban section just because you require, or rural section because you require urban sections. What we did here is we went back to the FDM, the Facilities Design Manual for the DOT, and we looked at what their minimum standard would be for a road with this type of traffic volume on. And we came up with a cross-section there, which was what we would prefer as the standard if we would go forward with that. Now, that's not to say that we couldn't make the pavement slightly wider because it is a truck area that we would anticipate that type of traffic on, but this certainly would be a standard that the FDM would allow. And then to break that down, there was some cost reductions that we had put in here. The difference is about $124,000, $125,000 and change is what we would estimate that to be. Now, I think when I was in here last time, I estimated that it was somewhere in the 80 to 90 for the sidewalk and the curb, and then we talked about some of these other items that kind of kick it up over 100,000. In all honesty, I haven't had a chance in my absence to look at these numbers, but I certainly would say these are the bookends as far as the lowest it would be for the rural section and the highest it would be for what we had originally proposed. I certainly would think the number on the rural section is probably accurate, but I certainly didn't have time, but certainly would just want to look, because I do know we do need a little bit of curb and gutter at the state highway entrance, and I don't know if that was taken into account or if my engineer just deducted the full amount. So again, it would just be a minor thing, but there's a few little tweaks I would want to verify. So I guess that kind of lays out the different cross sections and street types here. We had talked a little bit last time about potentially preparing, if you will, for future sidewalk outside towards the edge of the right-of-way. I think if you look at the cross-section on the top right, which is option B, the rural section, you can see that we'll have ditches there, but we're proposing on having that elevated outside of the exterior, the perimeter ditch lines. That can obviously be earthwork that can be done as part of this project to kind of prep for the sidewalk. That's not saying I don't anticipate that it would be perfect, that you can just go build a sidewalk tomorrow out there, but it would certainly minimize any earthwork or future costs associated if the road would be improved to an urban road and sidewalks would be added. I think that would be in place. Obviously, you would have to fill in the ditch line and probably put in some storm sewer, but that could obviously be done as you widen the pavement in preparation for the urban section.
Thank you. Andy?
On option B,
Yes.
is, if I'm reading this diagram correctly, 22 foot would be the width of the road
Yes.
with two 6-foot gravel shoulders.
Correct.
And then the other option A is a 30-foot roadway?
36 foot.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry to read.
Would be
30
face to face a curb, so the curb pan is 2 feet on either side, so if you took 4 feet off, the pavement would actually be 32 feet wide.
Okay. So you had mentioned that we might want to go wider because of the truck traffic?
These are 11-foot lanes on that rule section that we're proposing right now. Again, that would be what the FDM would recommend with 6-foot shoulders. It's a pretty wide shoulder, a 6-foot shoulder. You know, I certainly wouldn't, I mean, if it would be my recommendation, the 11-foot lanes are fairly narrow. I mean, with trucks out there, you might want to go with 12 or 13-foot lanes just to widen the pavement out a little extra. There are still big shoulders here for the trucks. Again, that's very helpful with accommodating those vehicles. But again, I think this would just be the minimum amount. I would want to certainly, before I make a recommendation, get into the design and start laying things out and seeing how things are tying into driveways and properties and what turn radiuses are before we'd actually kind of settle on a actual width. But again, I would say this would be the minimum that the FDM would allow.
And with such a narrow road, you probably wouldn't want any parking.
No.
And then, but I work in my company. We have 100 semi trucks in a day, and they park on the side of the road, waiting to be able to get into where they need to go, into their door. And I would be afraid that that's a little too narrow. And
Yeah.
they would probably still park on the side of the road regardless if there was a no parking sign.
There is a 6-foot shoulder there. Certainly if we made the pavement wide enough, an 8-foot lane is the minimum, so you would still have about 9 foot there. So I mean, a truck parked on the side of the road is feasible in this case, not probably very accommodating. These are 2 very large lots on either side of Hall Road as well. I mean, they can easily accommodate truck staging on their individual lots. It's not a very long road section to do that on. Plus, we have multiple access points that'll be coming off for Drexel. Frommond indicated in the future they may want an access point. So I think the possibility of actually putting a parked vehicle on here as far as a truck, like a semi-tractor trailer, would probably not be very suitable, just for those reasons. But certainly you're right. I think somebody's going to do it. Can we accommodate it? We could, I think, if we widen the pavement a little bit and keep the rural section.
And Jason, I'm assuming as part of your design, you'll probably talk to Drexel and Fromm about daily truck traffic and kind of take that into consideration, that if there's not a lot of drop-offs every day, that there might not be that happening. Yeah,
because when we look at the pavement design, one of the things as engineers we look at is what we call the daily traffic volume, the average daily traffic volume, ADT. And what we look at on roads like this is there's kind of a minimum threshold of, when we start looking at design standards of this width that we're talking, 22-foot pavement, we're talking a minimum of the low end is 800 vehicles a day. Most of these types of roads, we wouldn't see that volume on. So again, will be less than the minimum threshold that we would design to. So we'd be conservatively designing the road. That would go along with the pavement section, the thickness of the pavement, as well as the width and parameters of the roadway layout itself. So, again, I'm pretty confident we're not going to introduce that volume of traffic, that we have to be too concerned about this. But my biggest concern would be turning radiuses in and out of properties, and what Andy said. Are we going to get a truck pulling up? I mean, obviously, most trucks wouldn't do that, but we're going to get a few of them. So what does that do to traffic? Can we get rigs around them? Can we get staging in and off of 16 queuing distances? So those are things we'll be looking at.
With lumber, there's quite often wide loads. Is that taken into consideration with the width of the road?
Well, again, 8-foot lanes is what would be the minimum required for just physical vehicle traffic, and we're talking, 11-foot lanes. So it is pretty narrow, and that's why I think I would certainly be recommending we go a little larger on that if we're going with this rural section. Obviously, the urban section, it's not a non-issue because we're sufficiently wide. But again, those are just kind of design things where when we get into the details, if we know we're going to go with a rural section, we'll certainly come back with a designed rural section based on those criteria.
Thank you. At this point, I'd just like everybody to wait until you're recognized by the chair of the meeting to go ahead and speak. I'm trying to keep everybody with their opportunities. So Regan, can you please go ahead? You've been waiting patiently. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy over there. No, I'm just kidding. I guess I just wanted to weigh in. I know last time we talked about this, I was in favor of sidewalks in general. I continue to prefer the option for the urban section for a couple reasons, not just the sidewalks. But I think when we take into consideration the whole of what's going on out there, the breadth and width of all the development, it's fast going to be an urban section. It's whether it's industrial urban, it's certainly not going to have a rural feel to it. And I think future planning for the way it's going to look, cohesiveness, but also just the everyday use, the urban section, I just think it makes more sense. Also, I'm in favor of communities where you can get around on your bike or on your feet from one end to the other. I really dislike it when plans are made and we have barriers that don't allow access to certain areas of the city. That was my 2 cents.
Thank you. Trina?
I'm leaning towards going the rural route, but I believe that the width needs to be extended at least a minimum of 2 feet, probably more. So we don't have just guaranteed congestion problems in the very near future.
Thank you, Trina. Matt?
Just kind of a quick question for you, Jason. I know that, I think, Aaron, did this while I'm not sure if you know much about what he kind of had in mind, or have you guys looked as to what you're thinking for like pavement structure out there? I'm assuming you need a rural section, probably like asphalt. Would you be using, well, I guess, would your number here be factoring in like Select or GeoGrid or something like that, and trying to be in preparation of getting a little more life out of the pavement, even though we are on a minimal design criteria? I guess I'm just trying to figure, are we ballpark-ish?
Of course, an engineering question, right?
Yeah, right.
Pavement design will actually be determined when we have the soil types entered into the design model.
Yeah. We're close to Dodge County, and it's
what I believe I estimated, and without looking at the actual estimate, what I would typically always do is we'll have a foot of crushed aggregate base under, for this section, I think I put 4 or 4.5 inches of asphalt. Again, these are just preliminary numbers. And then under that, what we would do is the numbers would include complete GeoGrid underlay. Not that we would need it, but we would proof roll and determine at that time of the subgrade. And normally I would put anywhere from 50% to 100% 1 foot breaker run undercut under that. So very conservative road design, very, very structurally sound road design. Most cases we don't use all that material, and then we come up at the end of the project with extra costs that we don't expend because we don't use those, but we put those in as placeholders, because if engineering has taught us any lesson, it's like when you don't plan for it, you need it. When you plan for it, you don't need it, so we plan for it.
Just to make sure I understand, your number you have here, rough ballpark, would be including that kind of beefier section
Absolutely.
out there? Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I totally concur with you in regards to a rural section versus an urban section and sidewalk and expansion, but staring down the barrel of $125,000 savings, I think it's definitely something to be taken into consideration in regards to conversations we've had about TIF life and PAYGO and things like that. So I'm getting a little more torn to on that one, as definitive as that is for my idea, I guess. It's
I
a
like
lot of
your
money.
definition of definitive.
Yeah.
At this point. So you think you're leaning towards a rural section? Do I understand you?
I would say, quick, hot, and dirty looking at it, I do agree with Andy that maybe, 12 foot just to make sure we have appropriate spacing. I'm sure once, Jason runs a crank on it one time, we'll definitely have a harder number. But with the beefier section that's out there, we probably should get more life out of it. But if for some reason we don't, we come back here in 20 years and do something to it, by then we might have a little more development. And seeing the numbers now, $125,000, over, you're looking at, a fifth, a fourth. We're looking at some serious money for the TIF, and maybe if we got a little better PAYGO, we could eat it up an urban section, and this is our lessons learned for TIF 5, 6, and 7.
You're aggressive.
Long-term planning, as we're planning on doing.
All right, thank you, Matt. Rod?
I'm for the urban option myself, and I understand about the money and everything, but sidewalks are important, and I think people will be amazed at how often people use sidewalks. They said they never see people on sidewalks next to Shopko, and I've seen a number of people using those sidewalks. I have no idea where they're going, but people use sidewalks if they're there.
At this point, I throw my hat behind the rural town cross-section. I'm not really keeping a tally here, but I think, Andy, you were comfortable with that. It seems like we kind of have a consensus of a majority of us anyway are in favor of looking at the rural. Is there any reason we should have this come back to the cow and, look at this with maybe some of your redesign at the 12-foot lane, something like that?
Yeah, I guess to have Jason do pavement design and come back with what it would look like would not be a much additional time on your all's end to run just one last check. And I mean, if it's 125 now and it turns out to be 75 later, that's a big swing. This is not bullseye. So I guess, with the idea of having him come back for, pursuing rural, but obviously throwing in that extra addition to initial design for urban to see kind of what the numbers end up being at.
I wouldn't mind seeing both come back as far as presentation, but maybe getting that rural one updated, Jason, kind of considering the concerns voiced as far as traffic lane and the issues that could potentially be there with rig stacking on Hall Road.
Yeah. Is there, and there also might be a chance too of exceptions to standards for the 32 potentially for the rural. I don't know what that would fall in regards to our city ordinances do we have ordinances for, obviously for sidewalk stuff and for curbing, but for widths and things like that, it kind of just falls into whatever the purview of city engineer Lisa.
This is the design standard for the urban section in the ordinance.
In the ordinance?
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay.
That's not saying you could adjust that urban section. We could certainly look at, a smaller section with no parking, which we could go to 14-foot lanes with a 28-foot face-to-face or something, and we could certainly cut down costs. For comparison, not to make it too convoluted, but if you're interested, I could run a quick analysis of cost savings with pavement and there's going to be some there. It's not going to be near as great because the bulk of the costs are in the sidewalk and the curb and gutter. But again, there could be some there that we could look at that we could bring back just for consideration if you wish. It's up to the group.
I think that might be something that you and Rod and Regan would be definitely up for hearing. If you want the urban section with sidewalk, but if it was pared down a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything until Reagan let me. I'm
sorry, I was going to call on Andy.
I was just going to request that you come back with urban design at the rural price. That would be fantastic. But yes, a hybrid of some kind. I think that would answer a lot of my concerns.
Diamond rings and Cracker Jack boxes too. If you could make that happen, it'd be great.
We'll do our best.
Andy?
Yeah, while my questions were focused on the option B, I had not weighed in on either way on where I was leaning.
Okay.
I would be interested to know the cost difference in the urban section being a little wider for the truck,
Okay.
for truck traffic.
The rural section, you mean?
What did I say? Urban?
Urban,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, whatever. Rural, sorry. And then, and as far as the option A, the width, that's because of the ordinance as well for?
A is because of the ordinance, correct?
Okay, so I would like to see the difference in price, and, we do have an ordinance for sidewalks that it is required, so we would have to probably do a waiver for that, so, at this point, I would like to see where we are with B, and then go from there for a wider B.
What do you think a timeline would be on that, Jason? Would that be for the October 3rd meeting?
Oh,
or-
absolutely.
Okay.
Just changing these costs doesn't take us a whole lot at this point, and obviously, we're going to want to obviously get some direction relatively soon.
Yes.
From an engineering standpoint, I don't really have a recommendation. This is entirely up to you. I think we'll build a good road either way, and I think there's, very good arguments made on both sides of this. you know, the urban section has some definitely pros as far as stormwater management and, you know, the street itself. But again, keep in mind, we did have the sidewalk cost out there initially, because I think when I brought this to you, my first comment was we could do the urban section without the sidewalk. And so, you know, I certainly don't want to just pare it down to either rule without sidewalks or urban with sidewalks. You know, just give that some consideration, because I think we can get a good road. And even if we prep the area for maybe future sidewalks, those could go in with another phase or extension of a bike trail out to that location or something. And so, you know, that again, that might just be something that we try and prep. We had talked a little bit about that last time about prepping for future stuff, but maybe not installing it now. So I think we have the sidewalk costs identified. So, you know, we can just chop those off the urban price, especially if I give a hybrid of maybe a slightly smaller cross section. We could get that urban cost maybe a little more in that rural direction for you. So when I package it up, I'll give you a couple different things to consider next time, but we'll give those few options back.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I got one other thing on this item, and I know you guys don't have it in your packet tonight, but I did learn late last week that as part of this T-grant in Hall Road design, we have to do a design study report that does require us to do a traffic impact analysis. Now, we have one for the area with the Commerce Center that was done out there, and the state acknowledged that we do have it, but they did admit that it's several years old now, and they're looking to have it updated. That's something that we didn't have in our original contract, because we were kind of led to believe that we would be able to use that one. They want to look at it particularly in relation to the intersection design requirement of what it would look like on 16, if it'd be a type B2, and what the taper and excel lane distances will be. And they're really wanting to tailor it specific to the land use, because we know what the businesses will be versus some assumptions that the Commerce Center plan had laid out. I think it was back in 2010 or 2012, somewhere in that neighborhood. So what we'd ultimately have to do is, it's not a full traffic impact analysis that the DOT would require, but it's kind of a stripped down update of one that was already completed. The reason I bring that up is we didn't really have that in our scope to do. And so it's also something that's very specialized that we would likely just reach out to one of the traffic engineers that work very closely with the DOT, because obviously they know their procedures and requirements as far as the traffic impact analysis. So I guess I wanted to kind of throw that out there and see if you guys were amenable to me getting a cost from one of our consultants that we work with to just bring forward for consideration. I don't even know what that would be yet. I'd have to get clarification from the DOT and get a cost just for consideration. But it is something they are requiring that we weren't aware of initially when we scoped out the project. So any concerns or questions on that?
I don't see any. Thank you for the update.
Okay, then I'll put that in the packet for next time too, so we can just kind of revisit that as well. And hopefully it'll be a reasonable number, and we can consider that. So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Reagan?
Yes.
Just a quick clarification. We're bringing this information back to the committee of the whole next time, right?
Yes.
Yep, okay. Thank you.
Right, with a few extra pieces that Mr. Leith is going to be kind enough to work up some other options for us as well. So.
Okay.
All right, number 14, or no, sorry, we're at 13. Continue discussion on the stormwater pipe for Drexel development.
Round two.
Sorry, I forgot what the next item was.
Right.
So there hasn't been anything that's changed on this. We're still in the process of figuring out what that pipe's going to look like. The road design kind of factors into that, as we need to know how much stormwater we're gathering off the roadway and in the ditches via impervious surface. So the narrower the roadway, the smaller the pipe, those type of things. So as I think I reported last time, I just reached out informally to Drexel and talked a little bit about the pipe. You know, the original plan was that we would build that because there would be an upsize in cost for a portion of it that Drexel would pay, and the city would obviously do that because we'll need to size it and design it as part of the roadway project. Drexel had indicated, just as kind of a reminder, that they wanted to get started this fall with construction, and obviously they'd want the pipe to go in this time in the fall when they were building, rather than, tearing up their parking lot next year when we would be ready to build the road. We think we'll have the pipe designed and sized appropriately at that time, by the time we're ready to go. And I think what I proposed was an option to look at getting pricing costs from the contractor that were considering for the TIF4 sewer and water extension work out there. At this point, I haven't done anything because just wanted to make sure that you guys were okay with, obviously, that contractor and moving forward with that contractor, which obviously tonight you had indicated such. And my plan was just to kind of, if you're interested, to have me reach out to the contractor and kind of set the table for this question, see if they're interested in doing it. I assume they would be, and then ultimately we'll have to work with Drexel and ultimately get the cross-section figured out, the roadway design, and size it. I still think we're probably a month or two out of actually having to make a decision to, approve the contractor to do the work. But it's just, I guess, formally to get the process started and start getting some information around and trying to coordinate the logistics of making sure that we got some moving pieces here, the roadway design, the construction of the pipe, and then Drexel site construction, so.
Anybody have anything to say on this one? Just remind me again, I'm sorry, Jason, what you're looking at us, looking direction from us, or?
I guess at this time, I'm not looking for a decision whether we'll
Forest
install the pipe.
landscape, that's where I was
Forest
going, excuse
landscape,
me.
use forest.
Yeah, see if you
would be
could
just to
reach out to them.
basically, if the council's generally okay with the idea of me reaching out and having that conversation and getting pricing, like I say, I'd bring that back in a few weeks once we have some sizing done and we can get it in front of the contractor and get him to price it. And then I think we can make that decision at that time, so we can bring it back as a proposed change order or a quote or however we do it for consideration.
Matt, did you have anything?
Yeah, can say forest, and I think we kind of talked about the idea of if they're here and they got decent prices for us, why not reach out to them? Doesn't hurt. Well, we can always say no, so.
I think that sounds prudent, and then, yeah, you'll come back with some of the design update too, and you're further down the road, so to speak. Anything further on that?
Nope.
All right. Let's see, number 14, consider waiver request by Drexel Building. Supply of ordinance requirements for curb and gutter and asphalt surface for project. So, I don't remember, has this come before us, Patrick? The curb and gutter and the asphalt surface? Was that last committee of the whole?
Through another process, the issue emerged.
Okay.
We did the
rezone?
waiver through the plan commission, and
Right.
Jason brought up that to do that, we would have to grant them a waiver to the ordinance for curb and gutter and the paving based on et cetera size and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, so here's the subsequent request to waive the curb and gutter and asphalt requirements.
And Plan Commission was, I can't remember, are you the representative?
Yeah,
of that
because
one?
we push that forward with no issues, with them barring, I think, a whole slew of comments that R&M had in regards to the CSM and whatever else they were providing, which I'm assuming by now is probably, I think we got an email that a lot of it had been cleaned up, but there was still some that went back out for them to take care of. Jason's nodding yes, okay. And then I think we actually did actually grant that to them at the last meeting anyways, what was pushed from the plan commission, and then this is more so just kind of cleanup of what is necessary to make that whole thing happen.
That was a CUP related to retail establishment, 500,
Oh, okay.
50,000
Yep.
square foot.
Mhm.
Yep.
Andy?
As far as this request, I would not be in favor of having a gravel parking lot. I've experienced large parking lots that were gravel, and it's just a big mess. It's dusty. We have, potential in the future, things, houses maybe across the street, future development, and we might have dust storms out there, essentially. from experience, with a large manufacturing company that I work at, we had a gravel parking lot, and it was, the runoff from it was bad, and it was dusty all the time. We get little dust cyclones in the parking lot. So I would not like to see that in that area.
Remind me, was there two parking lots on this project, and one of them was going to be paved, and then the other one was going to be more of like a staging and offload area, I would assume? I don't know.
If you split the site into halves, the west half and the east half, the west half would have on the main showroom building the parking lots for customers and several of the warehousing type buildings, supply buildings. That would be the asphalt area that you recall. The east half would be the one that would contain the future rail spur. So it would be kind of the on-load, off-load area, I guess, in my mind. It would also contain a building over there that relate to storage of some type of material. And that portion would then be proposed as being the gravel that was on the site plan as they presented it. And so, as Andy was correct, they would have a fairly large area that would be gravel, and that's really kind of my issue for bringing it up, is A, it's not compliant with the ordinance, and B, it is a very large area. So that was kind of the site, I guess, if you would, in halves.
Mm-hmm. Like you said, that's the site potentially for a future railroad spur as well?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Regan?
Isn't From's parking lot is gravel at this point, isn't it? In this vicinity.
From's parking lot will be asphalt.
It
It's
will be,
gravel
okay.
under construction currently.
Okay.
But we approved that site plan with asphalt.
With asphalt. Okay.
This would be, I've been here for 10 years. This would be the only parking lot, I think, that's came forward with the request to be gravel that I'm aware of.
So we got to find a consensus on this. How do folks feel about this? Andy, you're weighed in, but feel free.
Okay, so as far as the rest of it goes, if they did have the paved parking lot, they would also then have to have the curb and gutter. Is that?
By ordinance, all parking lots are required to have curb and gutter. It doesn't say 100% curb and gutter, but certainly curb and gutter for the parking areas. As I've mentioned in the past, when we've approved these sites, I've always looked at curb and gutter as having it, at least at the entrances and areas, as meeting a requirement. Many times, and you see this not just in Columbus, there are green sustainable ways of treating stormwater by not having curb and gutter, and we treat those as upgrades to a standard curb and gutter parking lot, in my opinion. So when we see somebody using a surface drainage into a bio area and eliminating curb on a section of the parking lot, we're certainly okay with recommending that. In this particular case, they are eliminating curb and gutter, I believe, on the entire parking lot, but they are surface draining a lot of it off into this infiltration and water quality area. We did put in some stormwater BMP features to treat the oil and grease off those lots. We also did require they put in some riprap to dissipate the energy. So again, the curb and gutter, I can give or take on lots like this, especially in these large, type lots, such as industrial. But, certainly it's something that I want to bring up when we do this, because it is a requirement of the ordinance. But the ordinance isn't specific when it just requires it, that where, how much, those type of things. It just requires curb and gutter.
Trina?
I would really like to see a drawing of exactly how large their proposed parking lot areas would be. I'm fine with the area, like a little area that they're planning on having the rail spur be gravel, but I really can't see being all right with having a huge graveled area and getting it that kind of rolling, possibly with the dust.
I think we do, thinking maybe at some point this summer we saw a drawing of this whole thing, but yeah. Matt?
Jason, I think that's a very good point that you brought up, that in your 10 years, you haven't seen a parking lot that's been, that hasn't been paid. I guess, is there any extenuating circumstances or anything that would make this specific parking lot unique than any other parking lot that would qualify as not paving it, other than obviously them not wanting to pay the money to pave it?
I
versus
have
gravel?
not seen their waiver request. I would hope if they put one in, they gave a reason. Did they? I mean, I'm curious to.
Their letter is in the packet.
Drexel's requesting a waiver of the curb and gutter and asphalt surface requirements as stated in section 114, 125 city code.
ATC power line.
They're in
easement.
negotiation of the ATV power line easement that could change the location of the unpaved parking lot. Because of the uncertainty in the easement and future construction of Hall Road, we feel it'd be best to leave it basically as gravel parking area.
I don't, just throwing this out, could a compromise be, let's wait till, you can keep it, but wait
Going
until the easement is determined, and as such then address the issue, or?
Do we have any idea what that easement timeline is?
The easement for which?
The ATC
For
power line?
For ATC power line,
lines.
that's-
And it sounds like it's a potential issue, not necessarily even.
For sure issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I guess, and how would that really affect their paving versus non-paving of the?
I have a letter from, or an email from ATC that approved their site plan as is with the gravel surface, so I don't know what ATC easement issue there is outstanding. Because I
Okay.
told them they had to have all ATC's issues resolved before we'd approve their permit, so.
This is dated 9/11, which I'm assuming you've had in your email. approving their-
I've had the letter of ATC before that, yeah. So I don't know what outstanding issue there may be. I can follow up and find out.
Rod?
I would be for waiving the curb and gutter, but for the same reasons that Andy mentioned. I've worked at places with asphalt or with gravel parking lots, and they can just be a cloudy mess. So I think it should be asphalt.
Yeah, I'll wait. I don't see a reason currently this evening to grant a waiver. I like the curb and gutter, kind of delineates the entries and the exits, and the asphalted, all your guys' points are valid, and I would sign off on those as well, or co-sign on those with the idea that, yeah, you're just going to have dust issues potentially, and it's not an issue you've seen come up in your time serving the city as the city engineer either, so that's where I stand. I don't know if we have consensus on this. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we need to move it forward at this point. I think we do. We got to.
At some point in time, you need to do something with the request.
Okay.
Either grant it or deny it.
Deny it. Let's move this forward to the next regular meeting then, and we can take a vote on it then, and then we can resolve this one. All right.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Item 15, James Street project update. Patrick.
All set, okay.
Yes, please.
As I have been in all these committee of the whole, it's just the quick update on what's happening outside our doors here. Lots of concrete, curb and gutter, and they're not asking for any waivers out there. It seems like the focus is, well, the downtown, the west side, and getting that all together. They have been putting some particular attention to the Dix Industrial James area interchange there. They've had the traffic switch, and they're continuing to work on the underground there. So that's a key part to the project, and they'll keep going on with that. There's two other parts to this item here tonight. One is the looming East James Terrace item. I provided some information from DOT. regarding the step proposal that they had. And so they're nudging us towards a decision. In fact, they're talking about tomorrow as a deadline. So that just from the spokesman from the DOT is what they're saying. So I'm not sure where the council's at on that issue. And if we want to address that, then I've got one final thing about signage on the west side of the project.
Feel like we're going to jump into the terrace thing first, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Regan.
That's what I was thinking. So. Well, I guess the obvious question is, I would be interested in the railing. I think that on the picture we were provided, it looks really nice. I think it solves some of my concerns with the step. Before we get into the who should pay for it and pushing back against what the DOT has informed you or not, do we have any idea of the cost
Of the railing?
of the railing? Well, and I guess the second follow-up question to that would be, can that be put in after the work is done on the step, or is it better to be
That's-
put in?
Yeah. Jason left. I would have relied on him for that mechanical piece, but we don't know the cost of the rail. Just based off of, I was nudging them towards committing to that.
Right.
And based off of the response that you could do either or, I'm kind of feeling like maybe there's a similar, cost factor there. And again, I think I would want to follow up with DOT or Jason just to see about retrofitting or put something on later. But I think in the discussions we have, that's always been a possibility.
Okay.
And that would be their communication basically is like, I think you just said either or, right?
Mhm.
They would do one or the other as
Yeah.
far as funding.
Another quick little piece to this too is just in thinking about our discussions and thinking about the project, if we did the step absent of the rail, there's been that concern about a step, a graying upon gray, and is it difficult to see? So could there be a coloring, a colored concrete or something? And if we don't go with the rail, that maybe the step goes up and then it's a color there to make sure that the pedestrian can see that, yes, there's a step down. That's something that I put back to DOT, and they said they'd definitely be willing to work with us on that if that's of interest.
Matt?
I think at the end of the day, after kind of chewing this over, kind of chewing this over again and again, and looking at the picture we have, I think the chief provided to us, the railing's not going to be optimal. It's not going to look as nice as nothing down there other than our decorative poles. But I think if we did decide to go with the railing on the step, which I do think we should do, if we decide to go with the step idea, just because of the grades coming off away from the building and the fact that we're going downhill, which the picture we have here is a nice flat downtown street, but we're diving down both ways for grade. So I think that if we do a step, we should definitely look at a railing. And Carla's response definitely makes sense where it's one or the other, them putting in a railing and a step, because of the fact that it's not over a foot. We're not hitting that kind of threshold of a foot to drop off to require railing. So I think that's probably the reason why we were getting the push, the one or the other kind of thing. So we could, if it ends up being that us, the city, decide to do this on our own, we could reach out and go along our own route and kind of make it a little more decorative. I think I'd highly encourage that we have conversations about doing that same powder coating black to match with street poles for, kind of continuity through the whole downtown area, which will drive up price a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think if we should put it down there. And if we are going to put it down there, let's put it down there the right way and make it look good in the end. And at the end of the day, the concerns that I've heard and have myself from engineers, non-engineers, is the fact that we're diving away from the building and we're diving down the hill. And that's kind of a double-edged double whammy, I guess, and stuff. So I would be in favor of doing, working with DOT and doing a step, and then talking about railing on our own. And we'll have to budget appropriately, and if that's the case, we could probably expedite that process to get it figured out, and then it could be installed when they do that. But going back in afterwards and drilling in anchors and bolting it in shouldn't be that difficult of an option too. So I think that kind of allows us more flexibility on what we end up doing, but that's kind of where I end after all these conversations.
I'm in the same boat, paddling in the same direction with you there, Matt. Trina?
Oh, I'm still fine with leaving the sidewalk as is. I think that's a perfectly viable option. If we do go with the step, we definitely need railing just right away. It wouldn't have to necessarily be the long railing going the whole 70-some feet. It could instead be like just 2 perpendicular short sections just to delineate that this part's different than the rest of the sidewalk, but I'd want us to have it immediately.
Andy?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I agree with Matt. I think we should. I think we should go with the step and the railing. I'm still a little baffled by the fact that you were told that they couldn't get you a concept drawing of what this would look like. I do not understand why they can't do that, and I would like to follow up on some type of explanation on why. I still don't know what I'm approving. I don't know what it looks like other than this picture from another town that's not the same. It's just very frustrating that we're trying to make this decision, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm approving, other than some other town's thing.
You didn't appreciate the sketch?
I saw the sketch and I didn't know if that was their concept. It didn't make sense.
I'm not sure where the sketch originates from either, but Rod?
Yeah, I was
I would
hoping that
assume-
that wasn't the, what they thought we were asking for. For the step and the railing, if we asked the DOT to give us a railing, they'd probably give us some stock railing that they have laying around. And we have enough iron workers here in Columbus that we could have a pretty nice railing. I can't visualize it as yet, but, we should have a railing, and I'm for the 78-foot step option with a nice railing.
Thanks, Rod. Matt?
I'm pretty sure looking at the drawing, the design final computations, little blur out, that's standard DOT grid paper, so
It makes
this
sense
probably
to
is
me.
from them. This is, I think, what they were providing, and just to make a bit of an assumption. But yeah, it'll probably be a galvanized steel, basically like a bike rack, a simple, U shape or horseshoe shape. So, and I think that's maybe one of the reasons why they were resisting the idea of providing information to us, was because the idea of, if you go to Horcon, there's some very decorative railings and fences and benches. And I think it's one of those things where it's kind of putting the ball in our court to determine what we want to see, whether it's put in what we can get, which is galvanized, at the typical 48 to 36 handheld height, or do we want to do more of a kind of like what you see on like decks, where you have more of those actual runners and stuff. I mean, it's the sky's the limit on here. We could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with decorative birds and flowers and redbud tree designs and stuff, or galvanized poles.
Andy?
Yeah, they could still provide it a concept drawing with or without a rail, something.
Yeah, I hear you. The drawing's not the best, but the sketch makes its point, at least. I understand what it's getting to and kind of what it's going to look like. Again, I'm in favor of step and railing. Sounds like some people aren't, some people are. So can we move this forward to the regular meeting? And I guess we will vote on October 3rd as to whether we're going to go DOT step and city figure out railing, or what exactly that combination will be. But I like that idea, Matt. I think it's a path forward.
So I'm feeling good enough to tell them step is in the future.
I mean, I assume we have to still take it to the regular meeting.
Yeah,
vote on it,
yeah.
But that
We wanna do
seems to
that.
be consensus of the majority here.
Yeah, I believe they're trying to time this when the concrete people are coming back. And the way we typically see the projects, they're a little later than what they had originally expected in any activity on a project, so.
There should still be like a handful of paperwork on DOT side to get the contract change order through, do the whole step, and
Okay.
by the time we and then they go through the process and get Michael's numbers and run it and blah, 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 it might be, the snow might be flying. So I think that's probably why Carl is pushing for
Yeah.
ASAP on this, because we are getting down to losing.
And stuff doesn't happen without deadlines, so.
Yeah. So I'll be seeing the whole gang tomorrow, so,
Tell them action has been spurred and we've got a direction.
great.
And we will finish this off in the future. One last thing you said.
Yeah,
Yes.
the other thing was, at the beginning of the project, we had a plan for business signage, and that still applies. We're getting some questions from the businesses more on the west end. We kind of limited it to the James Street corridor, but it's becoming more beneficial to utilize the right-of-way potentially on Maple Avenue. I'm speaking more of like St. Vincent's and Dollar General. So just want to get a feel for if we can work again with the business group that's working the signage, if we could have similar type signs on Maple Avenue to direct them towards, around the construction, but because there are areas, you can't get to from James Street at this point.
Yeah, I'm comfortable doing that as far as that goes, but Matt?
Yeah, I think it'll just be a different, because obviously there's no city parking down there, so it won't be like the city parking signs, but maybe it's just putting a post by itself and letting them attach the same typical.
I envision, that Columbus business is open during construction, then the business
sign stacked below it again.
Right,
pointing.
kind of like what we have downtown.
Just so we
Yep.
kind of make sure we stay away from any sort of guerrilla marketing, like the 4x8 sheet of St. Vinny's that popped up earlier this summer.
Right. That's partly the reason I wanted to revisit this, so.
Andy?
So the paving is scheduled to be done the first week of October for that portion of James, or?
That's what I was told.
So if we move this forward into this next meeting, it's October 3rd, and they're already pouring concrete. And how long until, Matt, you might know, how long generally until something like that would open up to traffic? Because I see this as a short-term problem. They probably should have already had the signs up for the last 2 months or more, and now we're going to get them up, and then they're going to take them down a couple weeks later, I guess.
It'll be a 4-day minimum from the day they pour for breaks, and then 7 days typical. So if they pour 1st of October, there'll be no access up and down that stretch for a while. And then after that, it's then trying to do your sidewalk and your curb and gutter and all that kind of stuff too. So it could be that they might pour the first week of October, but then it extends into the rest of October with access issues because of driveways and sidewalks and curb and gutter and restoration. So could have been a meeting or two sooner, but it might be able to catch it on the back end, where if maybe we show consensus to go forward, they can kind of go forward with it in good faith.
Regan?
I was just going to say, I think we did talk about this concept when we were planning it. I think it was understood that that would be an option, at least unofficially. So I'd be in support of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I could indulge taking steps immediately on that. I mean, we could bring this back to the regular for formal.
Dot the i's, cross the t's, but
Right.
no one's gonna.
But in the essence of time and assisting those businesses.
Yeah. I'm
Great.
fine with that. They're not gonna get any kind of reprimand from us for this. We're okay with it. So we can finish it off at the next meeting. All right, items 16 and 17 were removed prior to approving the agenda. So now we're at item 18, unless I'm moving too fast here. I didn't think so. Item 18, budget line item, overage review and report. I know part of this, Patrick, you kind of asked for maybe a little direction or feedback as far as this process goes.
Yeah.
My big thing is I do like to have the overages discussed if no sooner than that August, early September timeframe, even now kind of works because we're in the budget process. So it's just good to kind of see what opportunities might exist for increases in funding in one direction or readjusting allocated dollars in another direction. I just think it's all part of the budget process for the following year.
Sure.
But
Would you like a quarterly type of thing? Maybe
I don't even know if it needs to be quarterly. I mean, it's just
first quarter you're not going to really see anything.
exactly. So much of the budget's got time to catch up. It's that end of summer, I guess for you guys, would that be beginning of Q3, end of Q? It's kind of the time frame we're in right now, right? You guys run on a traditional calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any time between, as far as my consideration goes, would be any time from, midsummer to the start of budget talks. It's nothing that should be too earth-shattering as far as that process goes. It should just be informative and help guide us with the next year. Matt?
I guess just kind of put this in perspective, looking at like $4,100 of overages right now. Typical heavy on this year versus last year, or are we usually in the tens of thousands of dollars range?
No, I don't see anything here that's out of the ordinary.
Okay.
This all goes along if something huge is going to happen, but that goes along with more of the emergency situation that
There's
we
other
have
policies that
addressed,
guide that, yeah.
elsewhere. Yeah.
I think that was one of my questions. When do we jump up to that next level of, like, it comes immediately in front of us?
Those would have to be reported immediately. And
And is there is that a $5,000, $10,000? I guess what's our policy typically?
I don't know that I'd want to put a number on it. I
Okay.
think
It's just more of a situational, okay.
Yeah. If it's just something that's immediate impact on an operation or something, we kind of talked about all of a sudden the tires are flat on the
Snow
plow
plows.
trucks on the morning of the blizzard or whatever. But, those are always going to be coming forward. With this is just, it's, things that weren't foreseen, things that have to be done still, but not terribly concerning on my part in terms of where we're at. So,
Yeah. Like I said, I think that August time frame, sometime even around now, the fact that we're going over this right now is fine with me as well, because it's typically like this, and this is only my third budget, but can't foresee everything that might happen. So if we just have this check and balance in place right at the beginning of the budget talks, I'm comfortable with that. I think it's prudent.
Okay.
So I wouldn't go any hard and fast date or necessarily.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's other policies that are kind of controlling some of these potential situations anyway.
Yep. And then I can imagine as we get closer to the end of the year, we may see more instances of these. So we'll just bring them, show them, put them on. You guys can look and ask questions at that time. I'll cluster them a little bit, maybe once a month, once every other month, something like that.
Yeah. It's like you said, too, the first 6 months out of the year, we shouldn't really see anything anyway. And if you do, it's probably going to trigger another policy that'll bring you here anyway.
Yeah.
So, anyone else want to weigh in on that? The update? All right. Are we good with that, Patrick? Are we?
Very good.
All right. So,
Thank you.
Thank you for presenting that and updating us. And it was nothing really extreme at all. It's pretty benign. Item 19, we are looking to convene to closed session. We do not have any other items on the agenda after this closed session item, and I do not believe we're looking to take any kind of action on item number 19. So once we do move into closed session, we will finish that and adjourn for the evening. So at this point, we will be going off the air and not returning this evening. So we will see you folks again October 3rd, the next scheduled dates. So, at this point, looking to convene a closed session per state statute 19.85, Part 1, Part E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require, specifically discuss potential development in TIF number 4 with Vita Plus.
So moved.
Second.
And roll call vote, please, Pat.
Aye.
Sorry. Kenny?
Aye.
Malat?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Rule?
Aye.
Traxler?
Aye.
Unanimous.
All right, so with that, we'll move into closed session. Thank you, folks, for watching at home, and we will see you next time.